three distinct types of challenges that companies face when they make strategic choices, when they prioritize their strategic initiatives. The first one is the fact that there is specific reasons that always skew the balance of efforts that companies undertake towards much more incremental efforts. It makes more sense because they are less risky. It makes more sense because there are immediate profits and benefits. It makes more sense because people know what they have been doing and now they're asked to do something along similar lines. So a big challenge there is, can we really get people to think beyond that legacy box, if you wish, and try to drive new opportunities? The second challenge relates primarily to who contributes to this process and whether these contributors see themselves as distinctive, let's say, stakeholders in the process that face transparent processes as they themselves make decisions of how to support information for the right decision to be made. And the last one is whether companies do face processes, whether they are really looking into having a distinct process, stepwise, systematic, institutionalized, by which they will be making those decisions. Often enough, especially when we're looking into small and medium-sized enterprises or even, mature startups, we may end up having very ad hoc processes that are primarily located at the minds of founders and the founding team without engaging everybody else, and moving away from such ad hoc kind of processes into much more of an institutionalized process is a challenge that people need to address. It's a big part of the innovation process. The innovation process definitely needs to depart from and disrupt what companies have been doing, but without any sense of direction, without any sense of where to search for the new big idea, where to drive the next growth kind of initiative, it will end up being a totally random process, a totally ad hoc process. And we have examples from the past, actually, when we're looking into big successful R&D labs like the Xerox PARC lab, which came out with amazing innovations that everybody across different organizations was able to sort of capitalize on. Apple is a good example of how they capitalized on the Xerox PARC inventions about mouses and user interfaces, graphical user interfaces, and so on and so forth. But Xerox never capitalized on this because it was a totally ad hoc, random process for them without any strategic sense of where do we want to go as the next step. So I would say it's a very important part, and the senior leadership team always should view their strategic prioritization process as a interlocked part with the innovation processes that will take place afterwards. Senior leadership teams and to some extent a larger number of stakeholders within organizations need to think about the portfolio, the strategic priority process, the portfolio selection process as an iterative effort. So they should not consider this as a static, one-shot decision that takes place and then eventually people move on from there by just executing. What should happen is they need to start off with some kind of an assessment of their strategy and what the direction emerging from their strategy should be, and then gradually move forward by considering and configuring, if you wish, an initial set of activities that would support this strategy. Obviously, in the process of collecting data, in the process of engaging with more stakeholders, in the process of dynamically observing the environment, many changes may happen, which could lead to tweaking this selection to a different set of priorities. Then we take this and we map them back to strategy. And two options could happen there. One is that as we map them back to strategy, we realize that there is a discrepancy, but still our strategy needs to be absolutely sort of observed. So we need to go through a second round of reassessing our portfolio choices, or we found this great, amazing idea that really would push us to reconfigure our strategy perhaps. That happens rarely, but still it should be an open option for a senior leadership team. Executing innovation is a challenging task in itself. Why? Because let's face it, we're actually asking to disrupt what we've always been doing by doing something new and something that's going to potentially, so there's risk involved, generate value, but at this particular moment, it's not guaranteed, right? So I think we need to be thinking about this execution part as a mechanism that should obey three distinct intervention levers that we have. First, definitely we need to prioritize, and we need to be guiding somehow this innovation process. So some strategic guidance is important. Not a strategic guidance that is straight jacketing, let's say, the initiatives to be of a particular kind. We need to create enough flexibility, enough of a sandbox, so that now we can leverage the knowledge that exists within the organization and potentially enable cool, interesting, creative ideas to emerge bottom up. The second thing is creating the channels that allow those bottom-up ideas to come to the attention of the senior leadership team and be funded to the point that we can eventually see them turning into viable initiatives within the portfolio of the organization. And last but not least, I think we need to be thinking about a set of horizontal mechanisms that will allow creation of new ideas and opportunities at the border, at the boundaries between different silos that usually organizations create. So the typical example is engineering and marketing not necessarily speaking the same language and losing on great opportunities that could generate new business lines simply because they can't get their act together. We need to create those mechanisms that translate language back and forth, and we need to create those mechanisms that enable different business units to capitalize on interesting gains that happen on each other. This is where you actually create the coolest set of innovations, by really working at the boundaries between different domains.